Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, awesome.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. You went to Hillman too. What year? No, I think I missed you, but how's everything?
Good. Can't complain. Day at a
Right.
time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Tomorrow's back to the grind, huh?
Yes, back to the drawing board.
You do the work at BreakBred. Talk about start how you got involved, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. How Break Bread came about initially was an idea I came up with a few years ago just for creatives to come together and just kind of have a mastermind group similar to what you all are doing with Mastermind Connect. And
Hmm.
then over the years, it kind of evolved. The more I was working in advertising and specifically working with big brands, I worked with Fox, Lionsgate. And what I found was that when it was time to tap into the African American market, or what they like to call the multicultural market, there was always something missing. There weren't enough people in the room to really speak on our behalf or reach out to the necessary people to get them in contact with them to kind of make those advertising campaigns make sense and there be some synergies between what the overall marketing campaign was and speaking to
Hmm.
that audience differently. They would do things like, let's add in some, little buzzwords here and there, or we'll just cut this piece of content, and then if there's a black guy or a black woman in it, they'll just identify with it because they see that image. And I'm like, no, there's more to it than that. Like,
Yeah.
we're not this monolith of a people who only watch something, and if we see someone who looks like us, we're automatically like, yeah, I want to go see that right away.
Right. Right.
um so about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I started recording my own podcast. I had this organization called Janes of All Trades, which was geared towards just honoring women of color who were from all different backgrounds, because I was used to just going to entertainment events, going to movie premieres, or I had friends who worked at music labels. But I wanted to start interacting with everyday women who were the audience of some of these entertainment brands. Like, we're going to these
Hmm.
events and we're seeing each other, but it's not the
Right.
actual groups of people that we want to interact with. And so I created a podcast called Women Making an Impact, which was named after my annual event that I would throw every year, just having women come together in celebration for Women's History Month, no matter what you did, whether you were an exec or CEO, or you were a beautician or owned your own business. We just came together to
Nice.
honor each other.
Okay.
Um, and so I created a interview style platform where people can just kind of tell their story. Because what I found is that when you ask people open-ended questions, they're very open to being honest with you and sharing, what's going on with them, what their experiences were. And I thought that would be helpful for other people to hear and either say, hey, I really identify with that, or hey, I've never had that experience before. It's good to see it from a different perspective.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and it was going really well. And I was working out of a friend's studio that I reconnected with from high school. And then he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to run this studio. I don't want to do all the engineering. I don't want to be doing the advertising. And I was like, wait, hold up. Like, what do you mean? Like, where are we all
Yeah.
going to go?
Yeah.
We're like in the midst of like, we have all of this going. Everyone kind of has their weekly shows and they're building up content. I was like, how can we figure something out
Hmm.
um, to keep this going and keep this content going, because there is a space out there for it. And I would love to help people build this up. And so we came to an agreement, and that's where Break Bread
Nice. Nice.
came into fruition.
Okay.
There's no People always ask you like, oh, so like what's the story? It's like there isn't really like this huge, like, I saved up money for 2 years. It's like,
Yeah.
um, I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna start searching for locations, seeing what's out there. I pulled money out of my 401ks. I had about like two or three that was sitting there from previous jobs that were just chilling. So I was like, I'll just take the L on those penalties and figure that out later and get the business up and running. So I started doing some research. I really wanted to be in Brooklyn because I've been living in Brooklyn for 10 years. And everyone was like, you should do Manhattan, and everybody wants to be in Manhattan. And I was like, that's just not true. I was like, I meet so many people in Brooklyn who are looking for a home, looking for a space to be creative. And I hadn't really seen that many studios who were really promoting themselves from like a podcast, storytelling, creative perspective. There are like radio stations that are out there like DTF. That was really popular, for, their shows that they put on, but there was nothing that was really geared towards like cultivating the growth of individual creatives outside of obviously like TK and Conscious from Bonfire Radio. Like everybody knows them. They help everybody in the industry, consulted with them and had some questions like, what do you think about this? And they were like, this is a great idea if you're ready and prepared to take it on. And in my mind, I'm like, no one's 100% ready. So if I hold off on this, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like ripped the Band-Aid off and went full speed ahead with it.
That's really dope. Like the universe just conspired and made that all happen for you.
Exactly.
And you were prepared in certain ways to be able to capitalize and seize the moment. So that's really dope. Listening to you talk about your event and, the point and purpose of BreakBred Studios, leads us into even my, the event that I host and founded, Afros and Audio Podcast Festival, and wanted to do the same thing, wanted to see spaces where, you find little pockets and events here and there that focus on creatives, more specifically, especially for Afros and Audio, Black creatives. And, but my point in doing was not to build community that already existed. My point of doing was also reaching for a community that I needed as well, So it's like having a space where not only can you create space and create community, but you can also find community inside of it and expand that much more and progress your own vision for yourself and for others. Like that's just a win-win situation. So it's really dope to hear about that and, how we even kind of connected and not knowing anything about your background, you not knowing me from a can of paint. It's like,
exactly.
Just walking in and saying, wow, okay, there's still an alignment and missions and visions and that sort of thing. So that's really, really dope. So, so I guess, should I talk about my joint now? I guess.
I was gonna say I would love to learn a little bit more about how the conference came about and the festival. Before I even met you, actually saw it circulating on Twitter. I didn't end up being able to go because I had to actually work at the studio. And then I saw that TK and Conscious were speaking on it. And I told a bunch of people, like, you guys need to head over to this. Like, this is really interesting, and shared it with a lot of the shows at the studio and was really looking forward to, having it this year. But 2021, bigger, better,
Absolutely. This is a great opportunity actually for me to step back from it in a way that says, when I first started, the idea of and how it came about is that I had started Afros and Audio as a brand several years prior to the actual festival, and I started it because I created a fiction podcast, and I wanted to see more Black fiction in the podcast market. And so when I put mine out in 2017, there were a few out, but not as much as there are now, and not as much period across the board, whether it was Black or otherwise, as far as fiction is concerned. And just thinking about that golden age of radio back in the 20s to like the 40s and how we weren't a part of that at all. Like there's an exhaustive library of scripts and actors and actresses for that, but Black people weren't even a part of that. Unless they were playing us, in certain ways, whether it was caricatures of our stereotypes of us. So that was my why. That's how it started, wanting to find and create space for other Black fiction podcasters. And then because podcasting was still somewhat new at the time, even though it gotten its was already moving forward and gaining popularity amongst creatives and also amongst listeners, it came to a point where I realized that podcasting was kind of firm in what it wanted to do at that time. So interview style, whether it was one host just kind of, shooting the shit, or otherwise, or having panels or what have you, it was more conversational and talking, to one another about various topics. And so it was a hard sell to try to get folks to say, okay, if you have a web series, because the web series market is very saturated and there's a lot of great content there, but at the same time, it's just like podcasts where it's hard to find what you're looking for. So there's a lot of great web series that kind of languish and I don't want to say the word fail, but for lack of a better word, because it's not failing when you put it out there, but don't gain the traction. That's the word. That's better. Just because of the saturation, you don't know, you're trying to find what to watch and what to hold on to. And so I wanted to help people convert their web series into audio so that they could have both. It could be a both and. People who write short stories or really interesting books that can be turned into an audio script, working to all those angles, but it was just a hard sell. People weren't really seeing the vision. And so I say like late 2018, I was about to just kind of dead it, say, okay, well, I tried, it didn't work out, moving on, because, I'm too old to not move on if I can't figure it out. So anyway, I met up with one of the co-hosts of Ask Mix Company. His name is Simeon. And he was actually a mastermind member at the time. And I met with him at where he was at in the city. And he said, bro, you should actually do events. And I think he really meant like a 2-hour meetup, but I'm a psychopath. So I went straight to a 2-day festival. That's what I heard. And so that's how it was born. Really, I took a few weeks of really considering dates, considering how long I could push it out before I actually had to deliver it. All of those things. Like, how can I commit to it, but figure this out in the meantime, because I'm clueless. I'm a life coach. I've worked in agency. I'm used to doing trainings. I'm used to doing workshops. But I've never thrown a festival before. And so I just kind of went in it saying, I don't know how to do this. But both of us, and I'm sure you deal with your clients as well. It's not about the how. The how will get you fucked up and not moving forward. It's about committing to the fact that it's going to turn out regardless, right? Now it doesn't have to, but committing to that part and focusing on the how as we go. And so that's what happened. I decided on the dates, June 21st and 22nd of 2019, and just went full speed ahead. Found some folks that wanted it as much as I wanted it, that were willing to support and help along the way. And we just pushed forward, found our location, all types of hiccups. We don't even got to get into that. If you anything you do that's major, it's not going to be it's not going to be an easy road. And there were times where I wish, that Homer Simpson meme where he goes back into the bushes. I felt like that a couple of times until it was beyond that point. But before that point where I could go behind the bushes, back into the bushes, I wanted to do it several times. But and we got our, like you said, TK and Conscious. Like I really believe that what we do, yourself and me, is very important. It adds value, regardless of how we may feel about ourselves. We add value. We're providing a service, and we're providing something that is really needed, wanted and needed. And so And so I just decided that it was time, and I was, if not me, who, if not now, when, let's just go for it. And so it happened. We got, for me, it's about being in excellence as much as possible. Limited resources is a real thing. External support is another real thing, where you're relying on other folks who might not see the vision the same way you do, or believe in it. And this is the first time out. So, us, myself included, it's going to be really challenging for me to spend a dime on something that I'm not sure about,
Yep.
And so it was, it was just that. It was really about creating the value, making sure that it was an excellence as much as it could be, and going for it, because I don't want people showing up and then they're second guessing their work because of how I'm presenting it or supporting it, because it's like, this is not important enough for it to be in excellence, for us to put our 100% behind. And so we had a great 2 days, and this year, like you said, bigger and better. But now we pivot, we go with what's happening right now, where we're trusting people that we know don't give a shit about us at all, but we're trusting them with our lives and our, what we have to do for this period of time that we're in, this COVID-19 situation. And so we're pivoting, we're starting virtual work. And then the festival is on hold indefinitely. Can't call a new date, but knowing that when we come back, we're committed to the same way, committed to the excellence, committed to adding value, and really improving the quality of what we can provide, and in regards to support and resources to our podcast creatives and our community. It's very important.
Yeah, definitely. I heard some familiar names come up to Simeon. I believe if we're talking about the same Simeon, he also has a podcast. He's been in advertising for a few years as well.
Absolutely. Aspects come.
Yeah. And also, there's a lot of similarities in that story, where it's kind of like, we thought about it, but we didn't overthink it. And we made our mind up, whether or not we knew it was going to be successful or not, that this was something that we were passionate about and felt like it was needed within the community, and kind of just, went for it. And then if it didn't work out, it's kind of like you fail and you take from those failures and figure out how to keep pushing versus dwelling on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important for our community, to start seeing people who know that it may not necessarily work out, but they're figuring out in the process. Like we like to say at work, you're like building the plane as you're flying, it's not, sometimes you don't have a full plane, or you don't have a full car. So you're like fixing it and putting the pieces together as you're building it up, because sometimes that's all you can do. All of us don't necessarily have the resources where we have a family member who can, invest money. You hear a lot of these, like, people love Gary Vee, and I love Gary Vee for his message of, just affirmations. But when he says he bootstrapped, it's like your family helped you by providing you with funding money to get where you are. And a lot of us don't have that base within our,
absolutely,
immediate family, the people around us. Like you said, they don't necessarily want to invest in something that they don't know what the outcome is going to be yet, because for them it's like, I need to hold on to as much as I can. And I want to see you progress, but I'm not quite sure. And especially if you don't seem quite sure, it's kind of like, I have to wait to see what that end result is. And then they kind of jump on board. And that's why we kind of have to build it as we're going, and put those pieces together so that they can start seeing they're real about this. They're serious about this. Now I feel just as invested as they are, and I can move forward with helping them.
Absolutely. It's the risk. It's the risk that we take. I mean, we can stay on the sidelines and wait for someone else to do it, or be a part of it. And I'm one of those people where, I liken it to, like, I'm an aggressive driver. I'll pull over in front of somebody in a minute, but if they start speeding up because they don't want me to pull over, I'm good. I didn't ask you to come over. I just want you to go. I just want you to move a little faster. So that's it. Yeah, I don't care if I'm in front of you or behind you. I just need you to move a little faster. And so, and so that's the same how I felt about this. I'm not in a scarcity conversation. You know, I'm not in a conversation of competition or someone else might take an idea or someone else might do this better. That's not my conversation.
Yep.
It's really about there's enough here for all of us to eat, for all of us to win. And when you're committed to a win-win world and a win-win situation, then you don't really get into the failure conversation. It's about risk taking. It's about experiments and experiencing this one life that we have. And the last thing I want to do is leave anything on the table that I have within my power to make happen. And, you know, I tell my clients this all the time. Listen, it's 8 billion people on this planet. If an idea came to you, then you have the capacity to see it through. Or else it would have went to another 8 billion.
Exactly.
8 billion. It didn't have to come to you for you to be able to see it through. So that means that there's something about this, even if you have to learn it, that you are able to start and finish, you know, and bring it to fruition. And so I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I know who I am, and I would be determined and committed to making it happen. You know, and it sounds like the same thing you said. You know, I deal with the penalties later.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you have to do that. I think a lot of us are afraid of the risk because we're not accustomed to seeing the reward. And a lot of the times growing up, it's like our parents were so scared to, you know, take a risk. Even when I think about the field I'm in as marketing, it's like that wasn't a thing. It wasn't heard of. And now that my parents see, they're like, how did you make a living off of doing this? Because for them, it's like you were a doctor, a lawyer, something that you knew was stable. Like most of my family members, they work for the state or the federal government or the city. And, you know, they have a pension plan. They're set basically, you know, they put a certain amount of money aside. They've been there for 20, 30 years. For them, they never wanted to take the risk of, you know, let me try a new field or something that I may be really passionate about, because that didn't pay the bills back in their day. They wanted something that made the family stable. You know, we have a family house that was built off of that. For us, they look at us like we're crazy because we're like, we don't want to do that. They're like, oh, you change jobs every 3 years. Like, why don't you stay? I'm like, this industry is not even built for you to be at a company for 30 years, like how you are at a hospital, which is more of like a sound facility and foundation. You know, like our world has become totally different for them. But I think they're starting to see too, especially as the new generation comes up, like my younger cousins who are now in their early teens and, you know, late 20s, the way that they interact with technology and the ease of how they can use things. Like now the older generation is starting to see like this was a valuable thing that, you know, that's come about. You look at us now where a lot of those jobs that people felt were sounds aren't able to work right now during COVID, and people have no income. And now people are figuring out new ways through the internet or video and audio on how can they make money based off of their skills without being physically in a location.
No, they did what made sense for them. And so, you know, even, you know, again, being able to create these multiple streams of income and then it not being about that, being able to be in contribution in ways that you want to be contributing to the world and your community. You know, I advise my clients all the time, the parents or whomever who's trying to say, no, that doesn't make sense. No, you know, push that button in you to say, let's do something safe and sensible. Once they start seeing that you have created a life for yourself or that income, their mouth was shut. But they don't know it yet. They don't understand it. So it really is about us being willing to disrupt for ourselves, because we will be disrupting our, you know, that whole mindset in our families and people who love us, or just nosy ass people who want to be a part, you know, be in the business. But either way, the liberation of ourselves and our community lives inside of those of us who are willing to take the risk and disrupt those pathologies and those mindsets. Because, you know, one thing I've learned being the age I am at this point is that, you know, we grew up with a bunch of repression, you know, people wanting to, repressed, and mostly because they were scared. They had their own fears, they had their own scarcity conversations, and we've been so ingrained with that button getting pushed of who do you think you are, to be anything else besides a worker at this place for 50 years. Like, who do you think you are? And so that button gets pushed, whether it's someone else is pushing a button or we push our own button, just because of our socialization. And so it's about really pushing past those things, and then seeing what turns out from it. Like you are, I love that saying so much. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Like, it's really true when you really sit and ponder it, that a lot of the things that we are doing now with our lives, they couldn't even imagine, they couldn't even imagine it. And beyond that, there were a lot of parts of them where they couldn't if they wanted to, or where it got torn down if they did it. And though we still live in America, and the same tone about us and our Black bodies and our Black minds is still, we're still in a country where we can do really anything we want to do and everything we put effort into. And to not have that cloud of oppression and so, and Jim Crow and stuff like that. And they still did it. Harlem Renaissance still happened, Dr. Maya Angelou, Dr. Toni Morrison, and James Baldwin still happened inside of that. So then what's stopping us, from taking these risks and seeing what will happen with it if we just take it and run with it, Even if we fumble the ball, we got the ball, and that's important.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's a very important statement. Like, you're gonna fumble, you're gonna make mistakes, but it's just that matter of keep pushing forward. And I think as long as people start seeing those examples, like I said, of us just keep pushing the needle and keep pushing others to kind of like follow in our footsteps. Something that you said really stood out to me, because I had this conversation with a coworker like years back, because growing up, my family's from the South, and it's always like, yes ma'am, yes sir, you don't talk back, you speak when spoken to. And I had a coworker who, he really wanted a promotion. He felt like he was doing all the necessary work within his role, but then also going beyond that and doing other people's roles. And I was like, we don't need two Black people there. I was like, you have to speak up. I was like, if you don't say anything, no one's going to recognize you for you, especially in our industry. If they can keep paying you whatever base rate that they're paying you at that time, they're not going to say, I'm going to give up another $30,000, $40,000 just because you're just a great human being. For them, it's an overall business perspective. But him and I actually had a conversation about, just growing up and some of the things that we're taught coming out of that repression, it's kind of like, you're kind of timid. You don't want to overstep your bounds in certain situations because you're afraid that, you may lose the little you do have, footing in that situation, versus kind of like saying, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And if it happens, it happens. Like, okay, if I don't get the promotion, I have a choice to either stay or go somewhere where I feel like my work is worthy and people recognize it. And I think that's something that we have to work on as a community as well. It's just not accepting what we think is our worth or what someone else has told us we should get.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if more of us knew how powerful, and I don't mean this in any esoteric or positive conversation. It really is that, a lot of POC, but especially Black folks, drive industries. We drive industries. Without us, our influence, maybe not at the boardroom because that's a deliberate act to keep us out of those spaces. Maybe not in the outer offices because, again, there's a deliberate act to keep us out of that. But our influence drives it all. And our willingness to be a part of it also drives it all. And so we really get to recognize how powerful our perspective, our lived experiences are, and our voices are to any given industry, whether we're leading it or whether someone else is leading it. it really is time out. Like, we're free people. It's 2020, right? It's 2020. Yeah,
Yep.
it's 2020. I'm fucked up. And
So I've been in quarantine so long, I don't know what year it is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, we really are going to have to realize that it is 2020. We are free people, and we truly, if not for us, a lot of things will be dead on the vine, you know.
Yep.
And because of that, there's a power inside of that where even code switching becomes almost unnecessary, because that's when they love the hell out of you, is when you up in there being as authentic as possible. And not that that's a requirement. I'm not even asking for your love. What I'm asking for is that I get to show up as authentic as I want to be.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And what you do with it is your business, you know, but I'm not gonna come in here and switch it up or you know, or do anything else. I mean, we know how to, one thing Black people know how to do is act. We know how to act. You know, so we know how to act in any given situation. Not all of us, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A great majority of us know how to act. So we know how to turn it off, turn it on, and do what I don't even want to give you everything of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not even gonna give that away to you. You don't get to go home now and start using my words.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, at the dinner table. So it's we really get to understand how powerful we truly are, and stop allowing the mind games to continue to rule our lives, because it truly is just a trick. It's just a game they're playing, and it's been very successful over the years, to the point where our pathology, our socialization, has put us in the same mind frame, even in 2020. You know, the year of the self-driving cars.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Yeah, so it's really important that we start to act accordingly. You know, that's really my theme for 2020, and when I talk to my clients, it's like, act accordingly. I need you to act accordingly. That's it. That's my only request.
Yeah.
Act like you are a powerful human being, because you really are. You know, in more ways than one.
Yeah, definitely. That's the life coaching coming into it as well.
No, right?
Yeah, I think that's a tough thing that I've noticed with a lot of people, and even myself sometimes. I have like self-checks in place where I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're not being who you're meant to be. Like, stop it, get out your own head, and just do what you need to do. You know?
Yeah, exactly. The same. You know, it's always a process, but once you become aware of it, it makes it easier, you know. But again, the pathology socialization has worked wonders. And so it really is about that disruption, the disruption that we do, just being visible and representation, and also the work, you know, just by nature of you having what you have, the studio, and someone walking in and saying, oh, this is possible, you know. That's disruption, and you don't ever have to even say a word, you know. It creates possibility, and that's very important, and that's very powerful, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And you saying that makes me go back to it was like a recent big issue with Honey Pot. They had a Target commercial, and at the end, you know, that's what the owner basically said. You know, she was like, for her, you know, this was so amazing because now other Black girls who are like her as a kid can come into a major store and see that my product can make it to the shelf, where all these other brands that I've grown up with, who are, you know, Pantene and all these big companies. And there was such a backlash to that, as far as like, you know, it's like, we can't say that we want, you know, our generation to see that we can be successful. Like, it seems such a negative, like, oh, why can't everybody be seen that way? And it's like, you already are, you know. We're trying to get people to see that they don't have to emulate you to be that way. Like you said, they can come as their authentic selves and make things that are authentic to their culture and to the needs that they feel are, you know, what's needed in that community to feed them, whether that's financially, spiritually, emotionally, and build something up for them that makes them money, that doesn't emulate a culture that isn't theirs, without there being a backlash towards it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I say a lot of controversial stuff, and this is going to be one of them. But you know, I truly believe that white folks have been rebranding themselves on television since the 1960s, to being the most loving and adorable, and most caring and thoughtful human beings on the planet. And I won't say nothing else from that part, but we've been the socialization of pathology has been real, and it has worked wonders. And so it's really up to us. It really is up to us, each of us as individuals. We've got to stop. There's this great quote by Howard Thurman, and I'm going to butcher it, but basically it says, if you ever get these two questions backwards, you're screwed. And then the question is, what do I want to do, and who will go with me? And it says, if you ever get the two questions backwards, then you're screwed, because it's not about who's going to go with you. Not at first. It's really about what you're willing to do. Yeah. What you're willing to do, where you're willing to go. We can only see how far we can go if we go out that far, and then we get to bring people with us, and people who have heard the conversation is with it. They come right alongside with us, but we really, as individuals, have to be willing to take the risk. Have to be willing to put our asses on the line. Yeah. Because without it, it'll be just the same old status quo and the same old okie doke. And it's 2020 with free people, as I've stated before. It's just not necessary at this point.
Yeah, that free word, we got to keep saying it, and it seems cliche, but it's so many of us mentally have a block when it comes to just understanding, the power that we have. And I think there's this idea of like, great power. It doesn't matter what it is or how small or minute that you may think it is. If you have some type of influence through that power, it will magnate, and it will become larger, because like you said, those people are going to start coming along with you. Like, yes, you're one person, but in 6 months, it may be 25 of y'all. In 3 years, it may be hundreds and thousands. And then it becomes a movement, So we got to realize that power, it's not going to start here. It may start like anything. Like when you're driving a car, you don't start at 100 miles per hour. It has to build up into that. So
yeah, and you also don't start as a great driver. Exactly. Most people's first cars got a whole more than a few D's in it.
My first driving experience, just think that's a great analogy, because I think my first car was terrible. It would break down all the time.
Yeah, I thought mine was cursed. But it was actually me.
I was a scared driver,
But you're learning as you go, and that's something that happened. For myself with Afros and Audio, I learned as I went, and I realized that even after we were successful and the 2-day festival occurred, that now got it. Now, what do I need to gain from everything that transpired there in order to go forward powerfully? Go forward with information of what occurred, and now make this a different level event each time. Each time we should be all in a commitment to improving something. And so I'm sure the same thing with you with starting in the studio to where you all are now, and it's still a learning.
Yeah, I'm learning every day. I mean, my background is not in audio and video and in production. It's in marketing and advertising. So like I can come up with concepts and ideas, but, I've had to learn, how to use a mixer, like now I can listen to, like, I'm listening to the versus battles, and I'm like, hey, like, you got feedback. Like, you need to take this out and do this. Like, because now to me it's apparent, whereas like before, for me, it's probably more like, oh, I'm just going to leave this, because there's noise. Now I can like pinpoint, where it's coming from and why it's happening and things like that, and help other people, create and make better content, that will be recognized and picked up by other people. Because I'm noticing, like, even now with the discussion around the creator of Blackish, and he created a new show
Mm-hmm.
called Black as Fuck,
Mm-hmm.
and on Netflix. And there's this whole debate going on about it's the same three shows, and I'm like, well, to me it's like Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he also has Seinfeld. It's like the same
Yeah.
shit. What's the difference? Like, who
Yeah.
cares? Like, if he wants to make 10 million shows about the same thing, why are we debating it? And even the whole discussion about what Black as Fuck is, like, people are like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm expecting like all black people, but I'm like, they are all black. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Rashida Jones doesn't seem black. And I'm like, but Quincy Jones is her dad. So like,
Yeah. Yeah.
we have to, I think we're also still stuck in this idea that being black is like still very much into those like old times. I think about like black exploitation, like where everything is
Mm-hmm.
like extremely black, like Black Panthers, and you were like big afros, and it's like we got the people with the afros, we got the people with the
Yeah.
straight hair, we have mixed people now, we have like all of that is still black as fuck.
Yeah.
There's no measurement of what black as fuck is, and I feel like that will help the more we start to build content, and there's more of an array of the type of content that we start putting out
Mm-hmm.
collectively together, and we'll start accepting like all those different ranges as black as fuck. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if you're light skin, you're dark skin, you straight hair, curly hair.
Absolutely. 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 And the fact that, again, people on the sidelines sure got a lot to say, and if if it's something that you want to see out in this world that better represents your lived experience, create it.
Yep.
Create it. Don't knock the next person who is in a commitment to creating from their own filter and from their own perspective. Like, we all get to do that. That's our birthright. So if there's something that's missing, or there's something that is a void, then
Really.
fill it,
Yeah.
figure it out, or talk to the person that can fulfill it. Share your idea so that these sorts of things can come to fruition. Because I'm of the mindset, it doesn't matter what I personally do, because I did it, it's now black. I don't give a damn what you
Exactly.
say. so,
And
so
that's how I
yeah,
feel. Like
yeah,
it's like there are plenty of black content creators that have come out with movies or shows that you probably had no idea that they were
yeah,
behind it. But like, what makes it a black show? Is it the
yeah,
people who are in it, or is it the content? Is it the person behind it? Like, what are we
yeah,
considering? Because I had this discussion with the person that when you watch a show like Girlfriends, because their thought was, well, Tracy Ellis Ross seems more black, and I'm like, why? She has a black mother and a Jewish dad.
yeah,
Rashida Jones has a Jewish mom and a black father. Like, what makes Tracy Ellis Ross seem more black to you than her? And I was like, the only difference I see is that you guys accept Tracy Ellis Ross within the culture as a certain way, and you don't
mm-hmm,
accept Rashida Jones for some reason. But I don't really see any difference between them personally as people and
yeah,
how they interact with both sides of their culture. And I think we
mm-hmm,
have
mm-hmm.
to, like, I think we need to stop mixing up race with culture and start showing those
Absolutely,
different elements
yeah,
within the lifestyle of, like, what's the lifestyle, like, for instance, like my uncle is Southern, but he's a Muslim. So like right now he's going through Ramadan. I'll never know what
mm-hmm,
that experience is because I'm Christian. I don't practice, Islamic faith, but that doesn't mean I can't identify what he's going with and learn something from that experience if he
mm-hmm,
was to
mm-hmm.
document it. And it doesn't make him like any less black or more black. Like, do I now identify him with like the community of people who are in the Middle East? Because I do see people who are like that. They're like, oh, well, he's Islamic, so like we're gonna lump them in with, you know, people who, believed in 9/11 and or these
Yeah,
radical people. And it's
yeah,
like we have to start learning how to compartmentalize a little bit and
yeah,
understand the different aspects. And the more we start putting that out there, it's more common ground. Like, people always say, well, how come white people don't get upset about this? And I'm like, because they don't need to. Like, for them, that's like such a small percentage
right,
of what they see.
yeah,
It doesn't matter. They're like, this
yeah.
doesn't represent me.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of the things that we even ain't get upward about is a construct, and a construct that was given to us, and we've been put inside of that framework. But it's, again, that's why, you know, I go back to the deliberateness of it all, and the mind tricks. And, you know, we could really go,
Deep,
you know,
yeah.
deep. Yeah. But it's really about recognizing that, we're not on two different sides of the fences, no matter what, whether it's, you know, whatever construct it is, whether it's colorism or sexism or, bashing or hating people because of their sexual identity or their gender identity or what have you. It's all a construct. And so it's just about recognizing that we are all on the same side of the fence when it comes to this white inferiority complex that we've all been brought up in, every last one of us, including white people who identify with it, and they are dealing with the psychosis of whiteness.
Yep.
We've all been inundated with these ideas that are mostly fabricated, and you know, the one beautiful thing inside of this this situation we're dealing with now is that people are now starting to see how much of a construct it is, because, oh, you said we could never work from home, but I'm working
Exactly.
from home. This is possible. Oh, okay. You said I had to pay this, that's, and the third, but oh, okay, nobody died because it didn't get paid.
Exactly.
You know, it's like all these constructs that are now like starting to disintegrate in front of our eyes, and what we held on to as truth because of what we were taught is no longer true. And so, I hope, if nothing else, people come out of an awareness of how much things are not as they seem, and how much ability and capability we have to be and exist inside of things that we can absolutely influence and create ourselves. Because a lot of the infrastructure that has been built around us and we've been taught, I tell people all the time, you know, going to school and getting a good job is not the American dream. It's America's dream for us.
Yep.
You know, to be able to fuel this society and this capitalistic concept. And so I really hope, you know, I'm not looking for people to be more productive and people to read a book and all that kind of stuff, but I do hope that there's an awareness that comes out of this, of what's constructed, what's been fabricated, what's been put in place simply to keep us in place.
Yeah, definitely. And it's actually been a challenge for me too, of kind of breaking that cycle, because I find myself saying, like, you know, like, yeah, I need to get in a sleep pattern, and I need to do this. And I'm like, why? It's not like I'm getting up to, you know, I don't have to get up and go to work and get on the train.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so many things that we think is just a natural thing. It's like, you know, you got to wake up at a certain time. You got to do this for these hours. And I'm like, why can't I just sleep when I'm tired? Why can't I just eat when I'm hungry? Like, why does it have to be in this scheduled life of, you know, even thinking about going to elementary school? When I was going to school, and I would ask my younger cousins this, we had nap time. There wasn't like, you know, you had to be up for 8 hours straight at a young age in school. But now these kids from first grade on, they're basically at a work day. You're training your body to be at work for 8 to 9 hours.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we're preparing for.
Teaching being in uniform, teaching how to be in a time frame and time limits. And this, again, we could go, but you know, it's all, and I won't call it an illusion because it's our reality, but it is a construct, and it's not traditional, and it's not natural, and it's not who we actually have to be in order to get along in this world. So yeah, even times and dates, it was all made up one day.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Because even now, I don't know what day it is half of the time or what time it is. It's just the same day as yesterday.
I saw this great meme on social media, and it just said Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on down, and all those was just struck out. Monday was struck out too. So it's just day,
exactly.
That's really all it is, you know. So so we talked about also getting back to the audio, and then I think, you know, I've enjoyed this conversation. We were talking about how important the audio is right now, and how important it is to be a part of this particular industry at this time, this particular market, and also just being able to record and create a historical
Archive of sorts, you
archive.
know?
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely, absolutely. So, I don't know if you want to go for it and give your thoughts or insight on it for right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, it was so funny that when we initially started, coming up with the conversation and topic for this, that we both identified of reading, the Epic of Old Mali and the story of,
Mm-hmm.
Sundiata, and, that we had that in common, and just understanding that naturally within our culture, like we're oral storytellers,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's just, the jokes that you see being cracked on Twitter, where people come up with these unique stories and there's this whole timeline and people are sharing it. Or if you're, even within your family, just hearing things that you've already heard from generation to generation. Your grandmother
Mm-hmm.
told you this, and, your mother told you this. And then I find myself, even with interacting with other people, I had a friend whose grandmother unfortunately passed away during this time. And then we were talking about Bill Withers, and it was raining, and then the sun came out, and I was like, yeah, my grandmother always used to say, when it rains like this, when somebody passes and the sun comes out afterwards, that means they've transitioned safely. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, my grandmother used to say the same thing. And it's like,
Wow.
we have so many, underlying oral traditions and stories that are so
Mm-hmm.
similar, but unlike, other pieces of history, it wasn't written down. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like podcasting is our time to use that same format that's natural to us, that's innate to, us as a people, but actually, as you, like you said, record it, have it archived, have it in a place where years from now people could come back now and know exactly what happened during COVID without
Mm-hmm.
having to read a book. They can just listen to different stories and accounts of what people experienced during this time period. How are they feeling? How did we cope? People are at home making home diaries of, what they're experiencing, of just being stuck at home, or the
Yeah.
anxiety that they're experiencing. And this is something that, we'll never know how slavery was. We just have certain
Mm-hmm.
accounts for it, but we
Right.
don't know how it is. Like I'm like, my parents were alive during Jim Crow, but they never spoke about it. But I'm sure if they, someone had a recorder on, during that
Yeah.
time period where they were just speaking freely and saying how they really felt, we'd be like, wow, like I never knew this experience was like this for
Mm-hmm.
them. and
Mm-hmm.
and and then we would have a little bit better understanding of like the repression that was, involved there, and why some people are like, some people went to the Malcolm X side versus the MLK side based on how
Yeah.
they feel. Or some
Yeah.
people stayed out of it altogether because they had a
Mm-hmm.
specific experience that we would never know. It's like, now it's our opportunity to share in all of that, have different perspectives, so people can get a better understanding, not only within our community, but also outside of our community. They
Absolutely.
can,
Absolutely.
have a chance of a day in the life to see like, wow, like I never knew that this was what you experienced at work, or I work with you every day and I never noticed that I said this and it made you feel this way because of this. Where it's like, oh, I say this to so and so every day and it doesn't mean the same thing. And it's like,
Yeah.
just kind of getting people to feel you from a different standpoint. And I also feel like it's easier to just talk about something than trying to write it down. I feel like when you
Mm-hmm.
try to write stuff down, you try to make it sound right, versus when you're talking, it's just you just purely out there
Yeah.
giving your all
Yeah.
and what you're feeling in that moment. So
Yeah. 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 No, I definitely agree, and I think that to piggyback on what you said, because that's all valid, and really I share the same sentiment. And I think that this is an opportunity where historically our experiences have been retold pretty inaccurately, especially if it's
mm-hmm.
not us telling the stories. And even if it is us telling stories, we all played the game of telephone,
Telephone, yeah, exactly.
So so without it coming, straight from your mouth, then it could be a bit skewed. And so it really is this opportunity here, like you said, where we get to take these moments in our time, in our lifetime, specifically as individuals, to have an account, that will be true to our own account, our own lived experiences, for years to come, you know. And I know this is a bit, it's not the same thing, but if you think about like movies like I Am Legend or anything else where it's like the end of the world and all they have is a broadcast, all they have is an audio, you know, this audio is really, really important. It really is a way to kind of time capsule in a way, you know. I am a writer, and so I love the art of writing, but I also love listening and learning from others, and getting people's experiences and perspectives, because we are not a monolith, you know. No matter what human being, everybody is their own individual, and has something to bring to the human experience and to contribute to that. And so this laying our voices down in this platform, in this medium, for me is one of the most important choices that we can make in this time, because again, you know, the media will share one thing about us. We are the only people who can share from our own experiences, our own lived experiences. You know, and again, it's 2020. We get to do this. We don't have to wait. We don't have to ask for permission. It really is up to us how we decide to leave behind our legacy, and legacy can be done in so many different ways. And if one person hears your account 100 years from now, you just created a legacy. You just created something very important. And I think that it is important because Black folks have been given the wrong end of the deal when it comes to representation and visibility, and folks on the outside telling our stories, folks even on the inside telling stories from their own perspective. This is our time. This is our time to do this, and I think it's super, super important. So even for people who aren't into podcasting or audio, this is also an opportunity to engage and learn more about our community, so that we can stop the mind games about what is Black and what's not. You know, what is, you know, a single mother's experience versus a two family household, or a child of foster care. What are our experiences, you know? And being able to tell them what are our triumphs, what are our victories, what are our defeats, what was that experience, what was going on in the world when it happened. That shit is mad important, and we get this opportunity to do it. And I just would love to see more people enter this space, and talk about their experiences and create inside of this medium, because it's going to go a long way, and it's going to last. It's much like, and it was great because one of our panelists, he said podcasting right now is like hip hop in the 90s, right? And so it's like they still didn't know, you know, we still didn't even know if it would become what it is, but it did, you know. And this is an opportunity for us now. We don't know where this is, still so fresh that it's still that uncertainty about the medium and where it can go. But I want to encourage everybody that it's going to go, and no matter what that looks like, it's an important space to be in. It's an important space to create in, and it's an important place to get your information and your entertainment from as well.
I actually think that's a perfect ending to this conversation. Nice. I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, just the legacy factor of it, and just all the aspects of you said. Like it's a platform where you can get everything: your entertainment, your news cycle,
your commentary,
where your homeboys doing, over here, and and like I said, I always think back to like my parents' time. Like they got their first TV, I think, in the 70s. Like it's like black and white, but they would listen to the radio, and somebody would come on at a specific time, and they would tell stories and things like that. So this is just a new age format of that for our generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Old as hell. Audio is old.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, we are just like any industry, without us, it would be the most plainest, boringest as low frequency having stuff. And so we really drive a lot and make it powerful and make it interesting and create the entertainment of it all, and accurate and real information, because it's straight from the mouth. It's our voices. So yeah, so that's great. So I don't even think we introduced ourselves.
We didn't? Oh, no, we didn't.
Yeah, so take that opportunity now. Tell folks who you are, and, tell them about the studio and everything else that you want to provide.
Oh, sure. Hi, my name is Afrika Hannibal. I am the founder and owner of BreakBred Studio, located in the Brooklyn Navy Yard in downtown Brooklyn. My background is in advertising and entertainment for the past 15 years. I've been doing marketing and communications for some of the largest entertainment studios like Fox, Warner Brothers, Lionsgate, FX, and just wanted to use that experience to translate into storytelling within our community.
Nice. And my name is Talib, and I'm the founder of Afros and Audio Podcast Festival, as well as the Vanguard Podcast Network, which is all about fiction and storytelling, and for the Black experience, as well as a dual certified life coach for Forward Movement life coaching. And you can find me on Coach Talib, Coach_Talib on Instagram, and at Afros and Audio on all social media platforms. And where can they find BreakBred?
Yeah, so you can find BreakBred on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at BreakBred Studio. And then you can find me personally at She Came to Play on Instagram.
She Came to Play, dope. All right, well, this was a great conversation. I enjoyed it.
This was great. So did I.
Thank you.